The first time he saw her, she was yelling at a parking meter. Not a light shout either, the kind of full-bodied, arms-waving frustration that usually came with a flat tire or a ruined birthday cake. She stood there in a tight-fitting navy dress with one heel in a sewer grate and the other foot planted like she owned the street, arguing with technology like it had broken a sacred pact. People passed by without slowing. No one cared. But Jack did. He didn't even know why. Maybe it was the way she refused to shrink, or how her sunglasses sat perfectly still on her head even while she fumed. She wasn't trying to be pretty, wasn't trying to impress anyone, and that, ironically, made her captivating. Jack was 22, a senior at North Park University, majoring in film and minoring in caffeine. He lived on student loans and whatever spare change he could pull from freelance editing gigs. He wasn't anyone special, not in a resume sense, and that fact gnawed at him more than it should have. His life had rhythm, but not melody. Until her. He stepped off the curb, holding a half-finished coffee in one hand and a roll of quarters in the other. "Here," he said, and dropped 2 coins into the machine without waiting for permission. Her head turned. Brown eyes sharp as glass, mouth parted mid-retort, voice gone flat. "You think I can't handle a parking meter?" "No. I think the meter's winning, and I don't believe in unfair fights." She stared at him long enough for it to be awkward, then let out a short breath, more a sigh than a laugh. She looked older than most women he met, but not old. There was something in the way her lipstick was perfect but her eyes were tired, in how her fingers clutched a designer bag like it weighed too much, that told Jack she wasn't used to gestures that didn't come with strings. "Thanks," she muttered finally, fishing her heel out of the grate. She stepped onto the sidewalk, adjusting her coat with precise irritation. "You're not from around here." Jack shrugged. "Student. That obvious?" "No. Just that polite. Which is either charming or suspicious. Why can't it be both?" That earned a faint smirk, the ghost of something warmer than indifference. She looked down the street like she had somewhere to be, then back at him like she didn't want to go just yet. "I'm Mara," she said. "Jack." "Well, Jack, next time don't waste your quarters on women yelling at machines. It encourages them." But when she walked off, she looked back once. It became a pattern after that. She started showing up on campus in the mornings, well-dressed, well-armored, always with a portfolio clutched to her side like a weapon. At first, Jack assumed she was a professor or visiting lecturer. Turned out, she was consulting on a grant project with the university's development board, corporate partnerships and fundraising strategies. The kind of job that screamed boring to most 20-somethings. To Jack, it screamed mysterious. Especially since she never gave too much away. Their run-ins became increasingly less random, a coffee line at the student center, a sidewalk near the sculpture quad, the campus library, though she always claimed she hated libraries, too quiet to trust. Every time, they said just enough to keep the tension unspoken but rising, like a half-written song playing under all their conversations. One morning, he spotted her sitting on a bench outside the campus museum, flipping through notes with a storm cloud knitted into her brow. She looked tired, distracted. Not fierce like usual. Her face in profile showed fine lines at her temples, and something about the curve of her wrist as she rubbed her neck made him stop. "Rough day?" he asked, stepping close. She blinked at him like surfacing from underwater. "Jack. Do you ever knock? I find it kills the mood." She exhaled. "You're too clever for your own good." "Probably. But seriously, you okay?" She didn't answer for a beat, just stared at the stone path ahead like it might swallow her if she blinked too slow. Then she said, "I sat through a 2-hour meeting where a man who couldn't spell initiative explained how I should rebrand my entire career. Then I spilled coffee on my blazer. Then I came here to work in peace and got cornered by a sophomore trying to sell me essential oils." Sounds like a full itinerary. That's one word for it. Want to go somewhere less insane? She gave him a sidelong look. "Are you offering to kidnap me?" "Not unless you ask nicely." To his surprise, she smiled. "A real one." Not the guarded, faint twist of her mouth she gave to donors or deans. This smile reached her eyes and pulled at something soft and rusted. "You're not scared of me," she said. "Should I be? I don't know. Most men either try to fix me or run away." "I'm not a fixer," Jack said, sitting beside her, shoulder brushing hers. "I'm more of an observer." Mara looked down at their hands, hers still gripping the edge of the bench like it might vanish. "You're too young. Maybe. But not too dumb." She laughed again, quietly this time, and he saw it, the flicker of someone who hadn't been surprised by joy in a long while. It wasn't flirtation anymore. It was something else. Later that week, he sent her a short video he'd edited, snippets of leaves falling across campus, slow-motion students laughing, a time-lapse of her bench in the morning light. He called it Waiting Without Waiting. She replied with a single line, "You made the ordinary beautiful." "Thank you." They kissed for the first time in the rain, under the awning of the bookstore she pretended not to frequent. Neither of them said it was a mistake, but both knew what it meant. The air afterward tasted like panic and possibility. "Do you want this to be a thing?" he asked one night, weeks later, over takeout and Netflix in his off-campus apartment. She was curled on his second-hand couch in a hoodie too big for her, legs bare, hair unstyled. "I don't do things," she said, picking at a spring roll. "Try. I'm twice your age." "Not quite." "Jack. No one else makes you laugh like I do." "I know that." She closed her eyes. "This isn't a joke. I'm not laughing." The silence hung, ripe and sharp. Finally, she nodded once, slowly, deliberately. "Then keep it quiet," she said. "For now." They didn't say love. But they didn't have to. It pulsed between them in every stolen moment, every inside joke, every lingering glance across the lobby or library stacks. It wasn't safe. It wasn't smart. But it was alive. And that was enough. For now. Jack hadn't planned to hide a relationship at 22. He also hadn't expected to feel more comfortable in the passenger seat of a black Lexus driven by a 43-year-old woman than he ever had in any dorm room or frat party. Mara's car smelled like leather and citrus and faint tension. She always drove in silence, eyes scanning traffic with the concentration of someone who didn't like to waste time or words. When she wasn't on campus, she lived in a townhouse on the north side of town, an area Jack never had a reason to visit before. He knew the kind of people who lived there: lawyers, board members, country club families who'd side-eye his beat-up sneakers and figure he was delivering food. It wasn't just that she was older, it was that her world had elevators with keypads, and his world had cracked concrete and roommates who stole your almond milk and swore it was a mistake. Mara didn't speak about her past in full pieces, only fragments. Over time, he collected them like puzzle corners: her ex-husband, a civil engineer who left her for someone less complex and more interested in yoga retreats, a strained relationship with her younger sister who only called when their mother was in the hospital, the years she wasted trying to fix people who didn't want to be fixed. She told Jack these things not as confessions, but as transactions, brief pauses in the rhythm of whatever night they were sharing, as if daring him to keep showing up after hearing them. One afternoon, in the quiet lull between classes, Jack was eating lunch alone behind the arts building when his friend Lenny dropped beside him on the bench with a too-wide grin and a phone held out like a secret. "Dude," Lenny said, shoving the screen toward him. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like." On the screen was a photo, grainy, zoomed in, but unmistakable. Jack, standing beside Mara's car, leaning in through the window. His hand rested on the door. Her sunglasses were down. The timestamp showed it was from last Thursday, just after the campus board meeting. Jack didn't say anything right away. He looked at Lenny, then back at the photo, feeling something inside him close a little. "Where did you get this?" "Group chat. Alex saw you outside Old Hall." "You know people talk, right?" "They always talk." "Yeah, but not about faculty. Especially not hot faculty." Lenny nudged him, laughing. "Is she, like, a cougar or something?" Jack didn't answer. He stood up, dumped his half-eaten lunch in the trash, and walked away before he said something that would make the rumor true in every hallway by morning. That night, he told Mara. She listened without blinking, her expression unreadable as he explained that someone had taken a photo, that it was spreading, that people were starting to ask questions with too many smiles. She sat on the edge of his bed, hands in her lap, the light from his desk lamp casting hard shadows across her face. "I knew this would happen eventually," she said. "I just didn't think it would happen this soon. We've been careful. There's no such thing. What do you want to do?" Mara didn't answer. She picked up her coat, folded it once across her arm, and looked at him for a long time. "I need time to think," she said, and left without kissing him. The next morning, Jack woke up to a message from her, "Don't text me for a few days. Let it cool down. Please." For the first time in weeks, the silence didn't feel full of potential. It felt like distance. The rumors didn't fade. They grew like mold, slow and quiet at first, then sudden and sharp. A classmate named Jenna cornered Jack outside the media lab 2 days later, arms crossed, voice low and too interested. "So, is it true?" He pretended not to know what she meant. She didn't buy it. "You and that bored woman. The one with the designer heels and attitude problem. People really need better hobbies. She's old enough to be your mom." "She's not." Jenna tilted her head. "You don't deny it." "I don't confirm it either." By the end of the week, he'd deleted all their messages, scrubbed his gallery, and switched seats in his ethics seminar to avoid Lenny's stares. Then came the envelope. No return address, no handwriting. Just slid under his apartment door like a threat. Inside, a printout of the same photo Lenny had shown him, but this time, highlighted with a note in typed font, "Not as private as you think." He called her immediately. She didn't answer. He called again. Voicemail. When she finally picked up, her voice was quiet. "I saw it too." "Who sent it?" "I don't know. But someone clearly wants this to go somewhere public. We should talk." "I know. Not tonight." "Mara." "I said not tonight." The line went dead. For the first time since that first day at the parking meter, he wondered if maybe he'd made a mistake. Not in wanting her. In thinking the rest of the world would let them keep it. The next day, her parking spot on campus was empty. He waited. All day. She didn't show up. And that absence said more than any letter ever could. He didn't hear from her for 5 days. Not a message, not a call, not even a glance across campus or a flash of her car in the lot near Old Hall. Every day felt like another hour thrown into the silence without answer, and every excuse he tried to give her, maybe she was busy, maybe she was traveling, maybe she was waiting for things to calm down, felt thinner than the one before it. On the 6th day, just after midnight, she sent him a single message, "Are you awake?" He didn't wait before replying. She showed up 15 minutes later, dressed in black sweats and a zipped-up jacket, no makeup, hair pulled back like she didn't want to be seen. She didn't say anything when he opened the door, just walked past him into the apartment and stood by the window, arms folded, staring out like she was still deciding whether she should have come at all. He leaned against the counter and waited. "I thought I could ignore it," she finally said. "I thought if I gave it space, it would blow over. But it's not stopping. Someone left a printout of that photo on my car windshield outside the board office." He didn't interrupt. "They're not interested in the truth," she said, voice flat. "They want a scandal. It doesn't matter if we never touched. Just the idea of it is enough." Jack crossed the room slowly and sat on the edge of the couch. "We're not hurting anyone." "I know that. Then why do we keep acting like we are?" She turned from the window and looked at him like she wanted to say something else, but instead she walked over and sat beside him, close but not touching. "Because this isn't a world that gives people like me the benefit of the doubt. It never has." He nodded, but not out of agreement, more to show he was still listening. "I've spent the last decade building a reputation that lets me walk into a room and get taken seriously without having to smile first," she continued, quieter now. "One photo, one rumor, and it's gone. I get labeled, whispered about, laughed at behind closed doors. I know how this works. You don't. Not really. I don't care what they say. You should. Because this doesn't end with just me. You'll get pulled into it. Professors start treating you differently. Internships disappear. That's how it happens. Quietly. He reached for her hand, and after a moment, she let him take it. I'm not scared of being seen with you, he said. You should be scared of what they'll turn it into. They sat like that for a long time, not speaking, not moving. When she finally shifted closer and rested her head on his shoulder, he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath since she walked in. That night, they didn't sleep. They just lay in his bed, fully clothed, legs tangled, talking in low voices like they had all the time in the world. She told him about the job she almost took in New York, the time she got drunk and tried to break into her ex's email out of spite, the friend who stopped talking to her after she got promoted twice in the same year. He told her about his brother's DUI, the night his father left, the time he got caught plagiarizing in high school and never told anyone. None of it was meant to impress or persuade. It was just them, stripped down to whatever truth they had left. Sometime past 3, she whispered, I'm alive again. Do you feel that? He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. But the next day, it happened. They were leaving a gallery opening on the edge of campus. She had invited him, said it would be quiet, safe, that no one would know them there. She wore a dark green coat and walked close to him without touching, speaking in hushed tones about the artist's early work and how his obsession with decay somehow reminded her of her 20s. Jack listened, trying not to stare at the way she smiled only with one side of her mouth when she was pretending not to care. They waited at a corner while she fished in her bag for her keys, and that's when he noticed the figure across the street. A tall man in a university jacket, standing half concealed by a lamppost, holding a phone-up camera lens pointed straight at them. Jack stepped in front of her without thinking. She looked up. What? He didn't say anything. The man lowered the phone and turned away, disappearing into the foot traffic without a word. She saw it. Did he get it? I don't know. She nodded once, lips tight. That's it, then. They drove back to her place in silence. She parked in the garage, turned off the engine, and didn't move. Jack waited. I should have ended this weeks ago, she said finally. He shook his head. You didn't. But I should have. That's not a reason. No, it's not. He looked at her, really looked. She was tired. Not in the way that sleep fixed, but in the way people get when they're always preparing for the next blow. If someone wants to hurt us, they already have the photo, he said. They're going to use it whether we stay together or not. That's not the point. Then what is? She didn't answer. They went inside. Neither of them brought up the man with the phone again. But something between them had shifted. Not broken. Not yet. But it was close. It was Mara's assistant who found out first. Her name was Clara, a 29-year-old with sharp eyes, fast typing, and a habit of noticing things other people ignored. She never asked questions that didn't need to be answered, never gave compliments she didn't mean, and always made sure Mara's meetings started on time even when Mara didn't want them to. That morning, she walked into Mara's office without knocking, holding her phone in one hand and a thin stack of papers in the other. Mara was halfway through typing an email when Clara said, "You should see this." The tone in her voice wasn't curious or surprised, it was flat. Mara took the phone, expecting another news alert or policy memo. Instead, it was a photo. The same one that had been circling the university quietly for weeks. Jack, leaning against her car. Her hand on the steering wheel. The timestamp in the corner. Clara didn't say anything else. She just stood there and waited. Mara didn't react at first. She scrolled through the messages attached, screenshots of anonymous group threads, each one filled with questions, speculation, names, and guesses that weren't guesses. It was no longer a rumor. It was a discussion. Who else knows? Mara asked. Everyone who wants to. She closed her laptop. Clara didn't move. I need your discretion. You have it. Mara looked up. But you don't approve. I don't have to approve. That's not part of the job. You think I've lost control? Clara hesitated, then said, I think someone else took control while you weren't looking. Later that afternoon, Jack received a message from an unknown number. The university is aware of the situation. We suggest you do not attend tomorrow's development conference. For your privacy. He didn't show it to Mara. He just sent a reply that said, I'm attending. The conference was held at the Ridgewood Hotel, one of the largest venues in town, a place where donors gathered in suits and drank sparkling water while pretending to care about the arts. Jack had only been once before, as a student reporter covering the keynote. This time, he walked in alone, wearing the only blazer he owned, and ignored the glances that followed him through the crowd. People recognized him now not for his work, but for being the guy in the photo, the name attached to Mara in every half-whispered conversation that passed between department heads and board members. She saw him before he saw her. Mara was standing near the main stage, speaking with a vice-chancellor in a navy skirt suit, her hair pulled into a tight bun. When she caught sight of Jack across the lobby, she stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes locked on his, unreadable. He didn't look away. Eventually, she did. The keynote speaker was a former senator with expensive shoes and a voice that filled the ballroom like it was built for nothing but applause. No one was really listening. Not anymore. Not after Jack stepped into the room and took a seat near the side wall. Conversations around him dimmed and shifted. He didn't care. After the speech ended and the lights came up, the crowd drifted toward the reception area. That's when it happened. A man in a blue vest stepped up to the microphone. He was a coordinator, part of the university's advancement team, and clearly not comfortable speaking without a script. He tapped the mic twice, cleared his throat, and said, Before we break for the afternoon sessions, I'd like to address a concern that's been raised informally but has unfortunately gained public attention. Mara stopped walking. Jack stood up. The coordinator continued, Recent images have circulated suggesting an inappropriate relationship between a member of the development board and a current student. While we respect the privacy of all individuals, the university maintains strict boundaries regarding professional conduct. An internal review is being opened. Every head in the room turned. Every eye found Mara. And then, slowly, they found Jack. No one said anything. No one had to. Mara walked to the microphone. No one stopped her. She took the mic from the coordinator, who looked like he wanted to disappear. She didn't look at the crowd at first. She looked at Jack. And then she spoke. This wasn't a mistake, she said. Not for me. Her voice didn't shake. I didn't manipulate anyone. I didn't use my position. What I did was personal. And if that's going to be treated as a violation, then you can call it one. But I won't apologize for something I kept private to protect it from the kind of people who are smiling right now. There was no applause. There was no interruption. There was only silence. Jack stepped forward. He didn't take the mic. He didn't need to. She didn't lie to anyone, he said. I'm the one who followed her. I'm the one who asked for this. A man near the front scoffed. Someone else cleared their throat. Jack turned to the room. If this is about image, say that. But don't pretend it's about ethics. You don't get to turn every relationship you don't understand into a scandal just to feel better about your own rules. He turned to Mara. You don't have to stand here alone. She didn't answer. They left the room together, not holding hands, not speaking. But side by side. Outside, she stopped. That just made it worse. I know. But thank you. You don't have to thank me. Yes, she said, I do. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them said what came next. The hearing wasn't disciplinary in the formal sense. It wasn't held in a courtroom, and no one was under oath, but the people sitting at the long table in front of them made it feel that way. There were 6 of them, 3 faculty members, 2 administrators, and a student representative, each with a notepad, a glass of water, and a face designed to appear neutral. Jack sat on the left, Mara on the right, and between them sat a space they had agreed not to fill. Neither had spoken about what would happen afterward. Not after the hotel, not after the drive home, not even the next morning, when Jack woke up in her townhouse and realized she had been up for hours. The university called it a formal inquiry into boundary conduct between faculty-affiliated personnel and current students. The language was careful, designed to avoid the word relationship while still implying it. Mara had arrived in a dark gray blazer with a closed collar and no earrings. Jack wore a clean white shirt and black pants that didn't fit quite right. There was no camera, but everyone acted like there was one running anyway. The first questions were for Mara. How long had she known the student? When did the nature of their interaction become personal? Had she ever used her position to offer him professional advantages? Had she ever failed to disclose her association to the board or the ethics office? Each time, she answered clearly, directly, without adding anything she wasn't asked. Her voice stayed steady. Jack had seen her fight with donors before, had seen her talk through budget errors and last-minute cancellations without blinking. But this was different. This time, she wasn't arguing for a project. She was defending the fact that she had let herself want something. Then they turned to him. "Mr. Hallberg, how would you characterize your relationship with Ms. Sandor?" Jack didn't look at her when he answered. "We were close." "Were?" He nodded once. "I'm not sure what we are now." "And when did this begin?" "I don't have an exact date. We started seeing each other outside of campus sometime in October." "Did you receive anything from her, grades, recommendations, work opportunities, that other students did not?" "No. She never taught my classes. She never gave me anything. I didn't ask her for anything." The questions kept coming, and each one felt like a demand to apologize for something he didn't regret. He didn't want to defend the fact that they'd met by chance, or that the connection had grown slowly, without calculation. He didn't want to explain why her silence made him feel seen, or why her honesty made him want to do better. Instead, he just answered what they asked. Nothing more. At the end of the session, they were dismissed with no verdict. A written decision would be sent by the end of the week. They were advised not to comment publicly or discuss the matter with media. As they left the room, Mara walked ahead of him, her pace fast, her shoulders tight. He followed her out to the main quad, where students passed without noticing, each one buried in their own day. When she finally stopped, they were under a tree near the sculpture garden, just far enough from any open windows to speak freely. "They'll make it look clean," she said. "Probably say there was a lapse in protocol and recommend a private censure. They won't fire me, but I'll lose access to anything public-facing." Jack nodded slowly. "And me?" "They won't touch you. You're still a student. That's how they protect the school, by drawing a line through it." He looked at her for a long time. "Are you walking away from this?" "I don't know. I don't want to hide again. I don't want to be a problem you have to explain." "You're not." "I am to them." There was a long pause, one where neither of them could pretend it was about the university anymore. "I meant what I said in that room," he added. "I know. I'd still say it again." "I know." He reached for her hand, but she stepped back before he could. Not sharply, not like rejection, more like she didn't trust herself to stay if he touched her. "I don't know how to keep this without giving up everything else I worked for," she said. "And I don't think you should have to carry the fallout of a life that was already complicated before you walked into it." "So that's it?" She shook her head. "No. It's not that simple. But it might have to be." She didn't answer. He took a breath, like he was about to say something final, then stopped. "Instead," he said, "when you first smiled at me, it felt like the first real thing that had happened to me in years." She looked down. "That was the first time I remembered what it felt like to be wanted without conditions." They didn't say goodbye. There was no point in pretending they had the kind of ending that called for it. He turned and walked back toward campus. She stayed by the sculpture garden, arms crossed, eyes closed. The following week, Mara submitted a formal request to transfer her consulting role to an external advisory position, removing herself from all campus visits for the rest of the year. Jack received a notice from the university clearing him of any policy violations but advising him to remain mindful of perceptions in future professional contexts. They didn't speak for a long time. Months passed. One evening, deep into spring, Jack opened his email and found a message from an unfamiliar address. No subject. Just a single line. "Are you still awake?" He stared at it. And for the first time in a while, he didn't know how to answer.